meeting to order. Jason, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Victor, would you lead us in prayer tonight?
Yes. Father God in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful, beautiful day that you've allowed us to breathe in today. God, we ask for your mercy. God, we ask that you will also guide us in the right direction, Lord, that you will place your hand upon the city, Lord, and allow it to prosper. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Lorena, roll call, please.
Counselor Foster?
Present.
Counselor Locke?
Here.
Counselor Lorenz?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Segala?
Here.
Mayor Becker?
Here.
The quorum is declared.
Is there any modifications to the agenda?
No.
Approval of consent agenda minutes of regular meeting from September 1st, 2022, and review and approval of accounts payable.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from September 1, 2022, and review and approve on accounts payable.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to approve minutes of the regular meeting from September 1st, 2022, and approval of accounts payable. Is there any more discussion? Lorena?
Counselor Foster?
Aye.
Counselor Locke?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segala?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries to approve the minutes of regular meeting from September 1st, 2022, and review and approval of accounts payable. Whew.
You get the hang of it. Proclamations. National Thank a Police Officer Day.
Yes, so, council, the 17th is National Thank a Police Officer Day. And we worked on a resolution, and the one that was recommended, none of us were very fond of the words, but we just thought you'd all like to know about it, and so you could do your own shout out to our wonderful police department and what they bring for public safety to our community.
So that's on Saturday, huh?
Saturday, yep. I don't know if the chief has anything to add to it or not, but
I thought maybe he was going to say some ribs and some ribs and some all that.
Brisket, yeah.
If you want to throw anything, throw some donuts our way.
Thank you, Chief. In the spirit of proclamation, thank you and your department.
All right.
Chocolate pudding.
So just a question, can we bring donuts here to the city hall?
We sure won't turn them down.
Tuesday, okay.
Citizen comments, special presentations. Citizen comments. City Council welcomes your unscheduled comments. Please limit the comments to 3 minutes. Council will not take action at this same meeting. Citizen comments. Margot?
Hello, Gigi and council. I am going to say a few, these are my opinions. I'm throwing them out, but I've been sort of talking to a lot of people in town about the spraying of mosquitoes. I've only heard one person who says they do not want it, and they have good medical reasons that they would prefer not to. So people have the right not to have spraying around the house. Not a problem, but the rest of us would prefer not to get West Nile or any of the other diseases that mosquitoes bring. And like I said, the people I've talked to are very happy with having the spraying. You can always hear the truck coming. Close your windows if you don't want that smell in your house. 5-10 minutes later, it's gone. I have a yard full of flowers. I've had more bees in my yard this year than ever. And the only bird that was dead was one killed by a cat. So, you know, for what it's worth, I hope the city continues spraying. And those who don't want it, I believe they can put up a sign and the city bypasses it. The other concern I have also been talking to a lot of people about the theater. And I've yet to find someone who doesn't want the movie theater to remain in Monte. People feel like it is a draw on the weekend. People come in to have dinner or a drink or whatever, go to the movies, socialize. It is a big thing in Monte to have this. And I'm all, you know, if somebody does purchase it and wants to do other things like plays or concerts, there are 2 other rooms where this can occur in. But please, please consider having it remain a theater. People still go. And the older people go to our theater because they don't. Most older people I know, including beginning me, starting not to want to drive to Alamosa to go to the movie. So having it here is really a cornerstone of our town. And other than that, thank you for hearing me, and you guys are always awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, Margaret.
Any other citizen comments? Okay, we'll go on to scheduled appearances.
We have one more.
There's scheduled appearances.
Yes.
They just had a citizen comment. Did you have a
No,
citizen
they-
comment?
no,
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 they're scheduled appearance for next week.
Oh, okay.
Martha,
I'm
is it
sorry.
all right if I conduct this one?
Well, they were
Alyssa
asking
Campos.
me if they could come up.
Monte Vista High School Student
I wasn't
Council
gonna say
homecoming information. Come on up, girls.
I was not going to tell somebody they couldn't come up.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Campos, and so we would like to thank you for past years of letting us do the bonfire. So we are also asking this year if we are able to do the bonfire and where it would be able to be at. We like the cleanup days.
So as far as the bonfire, we usually have it held at the Sky High, and it has been brought to my attention that we also, the community, do a sort of cleanup day as well. So we were just wondering if the Monte Vista High School would be able to use that fire and wood, whatever there is, to make a bonfire for homecoming, to have kind of like a kickoff. And would you guys like a copy of our homecoming week schedule?
Please.
Awesome. I have 2, so I'll put one over here.
And I'm sorry, my dear, but would you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Cassandra Lopez.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So the theme of our homecoming this year is like halls of horror. So
It's basically, how would you say, kind of like horror movies. We were really inspired by all the movies coming out this year, like Halloween, I believe it's like Halloween Ends or the new Hocus Pocus. And we really wanted to go ahead and incorporate that into our homecoming activities and what we do.
we also spoke to the police about the parade, if they can block off the roads on October 6th. They said they would be able to do that. And
And as far as letting the community know, we could announce on, what is it, our Monte Vista community?
the Monte Vista page, yeah.
Yeah, the Monte Vista page, what time you guys, or when you guys do the certain cleanup days, so we can also, as a high school, be able to give whatever we have and help others if they can't transport their wood from their house or anywhere to the land of the Sky High.
And then the lineup order that we're doing for the parade would be sports and clubs, and then we have the middle school band, and then all the floats, which would be the freshman float, the sophomore float, the junior float, and the senior float, and then the high school band and the royalty nominees.
When's our cleanup day?
It is September 30th, all day that Friday, and then until noon on October the 1st, Saturday.
When is homecoming?
It's going to be October 8th, so it starts October 3rd all the way through the 8th.
Yes. And then you may have already discussed this with the police department, but what road do you need blocked? What is your homecoming?
So the routes
parade?
that we are doing are First and Adams down to Second, over to Davis, and into the high school parking lot.
Okay, I can't write that fast.
Oh. So,
First and Adams,
and then down to Second,
okay,
over to Davis,
okay,
and then into the high school parking lot.
okay.
So parade lineup will be at 2:30, and then the actual parade starts at 3:15. So the parade is October 6th,
Yeah. What day is that on?
Thursday.
That's Thursday, so if you...
And we're planning on having the bonfire around 7.
Yes, around 7 o'clock.
On Thursday?
Yes, on Thursday.
Have you contacted the fire department?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you contacted the fire
The
department?
bonfire's actually on Wednesday, not Thursday.
Which is,
So I believe we have gotten in contact with the fire department, and I believe they have agreed to be there in support. Does anyone have any more questions for us? Okay.
I am absolutely all for you having your bonfires. I know that's traditional. I want you to do that. But please make sure the fire department can be there.
Okay.
Just on site.
We'll
Just
double check. If not, we won't have
yeah. We just don't need. I know we've gotten a lot of rain,
it. Yeah, but
but
we don't need
we don't need any more loss.
that. I totally understand.
So
We'll make it happen.
okay. That's my only concern. I really want you to have it, and I really want you to have the support to do it
But yeah.
safely.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, what day is the bonfire with?
So
Wednesday?
It's
the
Wednesday
bon-
the 5th.
Wednesday, 5.
Wednesday the 5th
At,
at 7.
I'll get with the fire chief.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much.
Pass that to me. It sounds to me like it's a go for everything.
Thank you guys so
Okay.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have
girls for
fun.
being here.
Thank you.
Be safe with it.
Yes.
so you were asking if you got this.
Barlow and Sanderson Stagecoach.
Can I approach you guys real quick with some additional goodies?
Yes, ma'am. We're not
Okay.
scared. We're not scared of them.
You should be.
I
My
know.
hope is that you each read one of these stagecoach rules, okay? Because this speaks to who we are at the Rio Grande County Museum and how we hope to go forward. But it's also the rules that the Barlow Sanderson Stagecoach had in place at the time they were running in the 1800s. And they are so fun. Martha, you're first.
Oh, I get to read the first one?
You do, please. Get up here.
The Barlow and Sanderson Stagecoach, which ran a far west stage line in the Fort Garland area, posted this set of rules in 1873. Abstinence from liquor is requested, but if you must drink, share the bottle. To do otherwise makes you appear selfish and unneighborly. Good rule.
That's right. If ladies are present, gentlemen are urged to forego smoking cigars and pipes, as the odor of the same is repugnant to the gentle sex. Chewing tobacco is permitted, but spit with the wind.
Gentlemen must refrain from the use of rough language in the presence of ladies and children.
Buffalo robes are provided for you for your comfort during the cold weather. Hogging the robes will not be tolerated, and the offender will be made to ride with the driver.
In other words, get out.
That's right, you gotta go right in front when it's cold.
I like that firearms may be kept on your person for use in emergencies. Do not fire for pleasure or shoot at wild animals as the sound of riles the horses.
So as you, I'm sorry.
So with Gigi and
Oh,
Gene
skipped
also
one.
had one.
Oh, okay, great.
what number? I'm
There's no
sorry.
doubt.
They're so funny, you can't
Yeah,
not read them.
We skipped the one about don't snore loudly.
Oh yeah, the snoring one's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so firearms? Is that the one?
No, that was
Jason read that one.
Jason.
Read the
Here's the
snoring
next
one.
one.
Okay, in the event of runaway horses, remain calm. Leaping from the coach in panic will leave you injured at the mercy of elements, hostile Indians, and hungry coyotes.
Forbidden topics of discussion are stagecoach rollovers and Indian uprisings.
That's right. Do you want to read the next one? Because I only had that many.
Let me get the next one, or you want me to go back to the one we skipped?
Well, yeah, go back to the one you skipped.
How about we move
They're
on?
fine.
I think we've had enough.
Don't snore loudly while sleeping, or use your fellow passenger as a shoulder pillow. Or he or she may not understand, and friction may result.
Oh, you want the last one? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, this one's for Becker. Gents of unchivalrous behavior toward lady passengers will be put off the stage. It's a long walk back.
And those were genuinely, that was the rules. So, Lindsay?
So as you guys can see from this small snapshot of history, the Barlow and Sanderson stage played a huge role in the valley as a whole, specifically Rio Grande County, because their main office was in Del Norte. We would like to request of the board the honor to be able to house the stage in our museum. We have the resources and the means necessary to take care of it properly and potentially preserve it back to its original state. So if you could.
Where is
Is
it?
it? I think you have to click, unless you want me to click.
Clicker person.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I didn't properly introduce myself. My name is Lindsay Farrell. I'm the new director of the Rio Grande County Museum.
Is it going?
There we go. So, as I spoke to before, we have temperature and humidity controlled facilities. This is important when preserving historical artifacts because the elements can be one of our worst contenders when keeping things in appropriate condition. So that's encouraging. We have access to professional archival material and resources, including people who can restore or repaint or help us fix things that have broken. And usually that's through the Colorado Historical Association. And then, of course, our staff is trained to deal with these circumstances as well to the best of our abilities. And we would manage the stagecoach with the utmost care. Through this process, it actually began because we're actively pursuing the preservation of the Barlow and Sanderson stage office. That's currently located down in the town park, located next to town hall by the railroad tracks. Local resident Patty Kelly and Suzanne Off have started a fund to raise money for the preservation of the building, and we're hoping to relocate it to the museum. We have a back courtyard that's extremely underutilized, and it would be a perfect home for both the building and the stagecoach eventually, once we get it roofed and enclosed. That would be in the future. It would be really, really nice to be able to put those two pieces of history together. they once brought all the people here. I mean, you can't even imagine the amount of people who came in and off of that stage and in and out of that office. It's wonderful. Also, having the stagecoach on site would help in the fundraising efforts for the preservation of the office. Grants and things like that are available to us, and it would just use as an incentive for them to give us that funding. So we would definitely like to thank you for your consideration in this matter. We would also like to speak to the fact that we have the ability to safely transport the stagecoach. We have large 8 foot by 8 foot doors that open into our main gallery room, and the stage is 4 foot by 6 foot. Typically, we would have to measure it to be absolutely certain, but we're confident that it'll fit just fine. We have put other wagons and stagecoaches into the same room. And then, yeah, you know, we really want to represent and make sure that we acknowledge all of the communities within Rio Grande County. We are Rio Grande County Museum. It is not Del Norte Museum. It is not South Fork Museum. It's Rio Grande County Museum. And that includes Monte Vista and some of the communities that are no longer around. And that is one of our main goals. And I think that it would be a wonderful thing to have the stagecoach and be able to offer it to the public. We see people from around the world that come through our doors, and just the opportunity to share its stories and our knowledge of our home and our heritage is what is important to us. And of course, we cordially invite you, maybe, to come see us at the museum. And come see the facilities and the things that we have to offer. And that's it.
Where is the stagecoach currently housed? And do you know what condition it's in?
I do know that it was donated to the Colorado Historical Association in 1956. They took possession of it, allowed it to be housed at the Fort Garland Museum. They attempted to restore the stagecoach, but unfortunately the paint that they used was inappropriate. So when that happened, Colorado Historical Association deaccessioned the artifact and gave it back to the city of Monte Vista. As far as its current location, I'm not aware. I know it was at Stampede.
Jane knows.
Yeah.
Jane knows.
Let me add a little bit to this. The stagecoach was utilized by Stampede for many years in the past. And then somehow a transfer was made of the stagecoach to Fort Garland. And when they glommed onto it, so to speak, the city went through probably about 10 years of trying to get the stagecoach back. Finally, we were successful in doing that because Fort Garland became really more of a military museum, and the stagecoach was really used for freight and storage, for civilian purposes. So they didn't really have a need of that. And when they changed curators up there, the new curator agreed with the city and was able to convince Colorado History to transfer that back to the city of Monte Vista. So we had a little ceremony there when the Stampede went over actually and picked that stagecoach up, brought it back. The hope was that we were going to get it into the Transportation Museum. It was such a large item that we would have had to take that window and probably the frontage out of that. So it therefore went, first of all, to storage over at the Guzlo building in the back there for quite some time. And then it went from there, I understand, to the city yards and I believe it's in a container right now in the city yards. So there are three entities here that really have various things about the museum. One is we've got the stagecoach itself. And it does need a lot of work, because when it was over at Fort Garland, it was really in the open, even though it was under a shed. So there's a lot of leather deterioration and that type of thing that went on. Now, it can be restored, because without having to go through all the historical preservation issues, because when it was conveyed back to the city, it was conveyed back for the purpose of display and so forth. And it was deaccessioned by Colorado history. So the city has the article itself. It has the stagecoach. Del Norte has the building, the stagecoach building, which is right next, of course, to city or town hall right now, and they're planning to move that over to the museum itself. Saguache Road and Bridge, interestingly enough, has the artist renditions of the route drawn in by some artist over there, and they've got 2 of those.
Yvonne Albertian.
Yeah, which explains the routes that the stagecoach used and so forth. So that's kind of the history of where all the components are and how all that developed in a nutshell.
And we have been in touch with Yvonne, and she's willing to give us those renditions.
It'd be
for
nice to get
inclusion.
them all back together.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you go back on your, for those that have your computer up, slide number 9, there's a picture of the stagecoach there as it was displayed during Sky High Stampede this summer. Right now, it's in the possession of the Stampede Committee, just because the city kept it in one of the, like a storage pod. And so Stampede has it where it can be, they were gonna look at trying to get some of it restored, but it's in a better controlled environment where they've got it stored at the moment than when we would have had it in the storage pod. You guys can consider giving it to the museum. You can consider giving it to them on loan. That way, if we ever have a museum and you want it back, you could do that. You can, so there's a couple other options. Peg Shaw is also in the audience, representing our local historical society, and she's in favor of it. There's Mr. Bird, I don't
What
know.
does Charlie say? Beg your pardon? Oh, I was wondering what Charlie said.
You're off.
Please.
And Charlie, state your name for the record, please.
My name is Charlie Bird, Monte Vista. I've followed this stage probably longer than anybody here and stuff has. And it's longevity in the city of Monte Vista. Going back to the old Monte Vista Commercial Club and stuff. So basically, when it quit becoming operated as a stage line and stuff, it's been basically in a possession back in Monte Vista in one form or another, until it inadvertently lost possession to the museum in Fort Garland. And at the time, for a lot of years, it was in the old WPA grandstand there, built with portals and stored in there. The weather was taking its effect. Security would start becoming an issue and stuff, and kids playing on it and stuff. And when we'd taken and spent a considerable at one point having it restored there also. And we were approached with the museum there that they would do it and put it in a controlled environment and stuff, and we could use it at any time and display it in Monte Vista and stuff. And then all of a sudden it got to where, no, you weren't welcome to touch it, it wasn't going to move. And I happened to stop by over there one day to take some pictures of it. And it was no longer inside, it was parked outside with the weather getting to it on the one side, and the paint was rolling and stuff there. They had lost their interest from what they originally had, and instead of keeping it inside, then it was being parked outside. Gene went through some great efforts. It was, through the commercial club, then the Stampede and stuff. And then it was our understanding that we had loaned it to the museum there in Fort Garland and stuff to be used anytime the Monte Vista and Stampede, wanted to and stuff there. And then all of a sudden it become their possession and no longer ours. I think it needs to be displayed. It's a treasure, but it belongs to Monte Vista, the community. No matter where it's displayed, and it needs to be available for when it needs to come back to Monte Vista. Would it be for a parade, or would it be like it was at the museum setting and stuff there? Somehow it needs to be very much, if it was to be stored there or whatever, it very much needs to be through an agreement that it does belong to the city. I think it belongs to Stampede, but obviously going through all the paperwork, and I commend Gene for all the hours that he went through, because the state had taken possession and they were not going to give it back up. And Gene spent a tremendous amount of time getting it back into the possession of the city. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it being as part of the Sanderson deal there in Del Norte or whatever, but I don't know what Monte Vista's, our travel museum, what our future history and stuff, what your plans or whatever is. But I think it very much, if it goes anywhere on display, it's very much of an understanding, and that there would be agreement signed that it is a possession of Monte Vista and available. So it wouldn't be housed in such a way that it could not be removed to be brought back to Monte Vista to be used and displayed and so forth. But yeah, I just very much, when you look at the longevity of it, basically it's been a Monte Vista possession since the stage line declined. And so that's a lot longer than it was, as a stage line. Mm-hmm. And so that's a whale of a piece of history that Monte Vista owns. And I think you need to retain ownership of that. And at some point, as grants and stuff become available, it might be something that you need to bring back to Monte Vista and display here or whatever. So those are my viewpoints on it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Come up and state your name, please, Mr. Shaw.
Perhaps I should say a few words here. It is our understanding that the Stagecoach never had a military connection at all, as the Fort Garland fort did have, and that it went, as Charlie had said, it went kind of by a mistake. And truly, one of the directors at Fort Garland said, if you come in the middle of the night and get this and take it away, we don't want it, we don't need it, please come get it. Well, it wasn't that simple, because it was in possession of the Historical Society, the Colorado State Historical Society, and it was a large effort to get it back to Monte Vista. Then, what to do with it? And I applaud Charlie for his interest in the Monte Vista-ness of it. That's important. I'm not hearing that would be ignored in any way at all in Del Norte. And the Colorado State Historical Society said it was not to be run on pavement with horses pulling it. It was too old, it was too fragile for that. Now, they don't have the say anymore, I agree. But as Charlie says, it's pretty old, and it might not prosper from being pulled in the parade each year as it used to be when I was growing up here. I think to display it in the stage station is a wonderful idea. And I would be, the Historical Society has discussed this, and each person is very much in favor of its being displayed in Del Norte. Truly, we don't know how else to display it. Where shall we put it? How shall we protect it? We don't know. So to us, this sounded like a very, very good solution. And I thank Lindsay and Kathy for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg.
Yes.
We were thinking, Mayor, of a special operation to retrieve that, but I thought we'd all go to jail if we ended up doing that. So I was reverting to my former life in that consideration.
Okay, I'm gonna get up here and put my little piece in. I'm the assistant director at the museum, and
Your name is, please?
Kathy Ellithorpe. Sorry. And I think that the problems Charlie had with the Fort Garland Museum are a little surprising, or the city had. All of that stuff is written down. It's all legal paperwork. It's all legal documents. And as a museum, unless you completely donate something to us, it's not ours. It's always on loan. And whoever wants it, even if you did give it to us, can take it back. We're not, we don't have any possession of anything. And I think one of the concerns that we as the museum have are the preservation of that stagecoach. And I know that Monte Vista's had a really difficult time displaying it. The Transportation Museum had good ideas and good intentions. It's just not really possible to get it out there in front of the people. And I don't know about anyone in here, but I think that stagecoach line is something that we need to be very proud of and put out in front of everyone. And at the museum, it would be in our middle room. We wouldn't have it outside, and it's a humidity controlled room. We have the material and the means to preserve the wood, and I know it's been outside. I talked to some of the other Stampede folks, and they said it was just full of leaves and just hadn't been well cared for. And those are things that concern us. We'd like to restore the leather as much as we can and restore the wood, put it right out there smack in the middle of everything, because it's huge in the bringing of people to the San Luis Valley and to Rio Grande County. And not just Monte Vista. That stagecoach traveled everywhere. It stopped in La Garita. It stopped at the Henry siding. It stopped before it was Monte Vista. It stopped in Del Norte. There were stops all over. And honestly, the San Luis Valley wouldn't have been the same if it hadn't come. So, and the courtyard thing, we'd like to put the building, I think you saw that, in our courtyard at some point. That's probably a year off at least. And the stagecoach would be inside no matter where that building is. We'd like to just have them together so we could say, look, here's the building, here's where everybody landed, and here's what brought them here. And so I understand Charlie's concerns. And we would absolutely, if you put it on loan, anytime you guys wanted it, if you put it on a trailer and you want to haul it down the parade or put it on display, that's absolutely great with us. We've got great big doors you can take it in and out of, and a big backyard with a way to transport it pretty easily. I don't see that as an issue. Lindsay, did you?
No, absolutely not. And that's the point of all of this. Mm-hmm. That's the beautiful part. It's like I said, we're Rio Grande County Museum. We are not one particular community. We're the combination of all of the above. Mm-hmm. And it's not our stagecoach. It's our stagecoach. Mm-hmm. We just have the means of displaying it and caring for it. Mm-hmm. That's all.
And maybe it would be kind of nice to let the county step in and give you a little money to take care of it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that. It would be so nice to let them support the care of that stagecoach, because it does need some work. I understand that.
Have you had a restorationist look at that?
No.
We haven't had.
So you haven't had access to.
Yeah, we haven't had access to it. But it's something that we can facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And actually we'll close in January to do a lot of that backlog things that need to be done in the museum. And that's on our list, is to get some archaeologists and some restorationists in to find out, and we can do some fundraising if the county doesn't have the means to take care of that. We'll get some restoration people in to look at it. I understand it's not even painted the correct color currently. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'd just like to take care of it and bring it back to a state that is.
There are companies that do that, because we've had the other restored and stuff. They're professional.
And there's a particular way with historical respect and responsibility that you do those things. You don't just start spray painting stuff. There are ways that you do that are appropriate.
So,
I think if you decide to go in that direction, we could probably develop some type of agreement for the continued ownership and ability to utilize the stagecoach, the various, giving the county notice and so forth and so
So
on.
who really does own it? I'm just curious.
The city owns it.
City?
City owns it.
Okay.
So, to speak to that, Jean, we actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the Past Perfect accessioning program. It's a worldwide museum database for the accession and loan process. And within that database, they create those forms that we can change and alter to fit our needs. So I could draft something up and send something over to you to look over that might have the appropriate language that you're looking for, which I know you already probably have that, but.
Well, some of those forms, I was chairman of the museum for years, as you know, but it's probably more modern now.
It is,
Modernized, so.
yeah, it's more modernized. And we are so happy to represent the city of Monte Vista with plaques, signs, marketing of, hey, Marlin Vista gave this to us. We have this now, come see this.
And I think the Stampede Committee should be recognized, and the Transportation
Absolutely.
Museum.
And we've worked with the Stampede Committee just this year. We supplied a lot of the clothing that you saw at the museum exhibit at the Stampede this year, the Stampede Queens, and some of their signs and some of their banners. We're happy to do so again.
The Stampede played a huge role in this because I know they went over as a group. Charlie went over there with them, I think, when they retrieved that item and brought it all the way back for us there.
Sure.
And I think they should be recognized in that too. It's a community.
Well, basically, like for 75 years or whatever was in our possession.
Oh, wow, and it should be, and like I said, I don't think we need to possess it. I think we just want to care for it and make it so that everybody can see, look at this. Could you imagine riding from Denver to here for 2 days or 3 days on this? And just to imagine what happened is amazing. So
I think that's pretty much all, unless you have further questions.
I would think once you, my opinion, 1 of 5, but get that written up and send it to Jane.
Sure.
And then we can make a decision at that point.
Absolutely.
Because I'm all about preserving history as well.
Oh, yeah. It's important.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Appreciate that very much.
thanks for listening.
Public hearing. We will recess out of.
Too early.
We actually
Oh,
have one
Ken
more.
Beck.
Let him run
Sorry.
the meeting.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Remember?
Let him run the meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you, lady. Thank you, Martha. Ken Beck Analytic Services by Zoom.
I got chastised. I wanted someone else to get chastised too.
He gave me a dirty look when I told him that last rule was about him. We're gonna have to separate you two.
So council, next on the agenda, you're going to be hearing a presentation from Dr. Concetta DeRusso, who is she is a scientist, PhD, and has a laboratory in Omaha, Nebraska called Kennebec Analytical Services. And Concetta actually lives in Durango. And she and her husband are considering opening a laboratory in the San Luis Valley. And Monte Vista is one of the locations that they are considering. And they primarily, I'll just cut there. She can tell you all about it. And we should be bringing her up here on Zoom, so. Good. Just to make conversation, she had met with Sarah Stober with the San Luis Valley Development Resources Group. Sarah introduced her to us, and DJ and I met with them a couple of weeks ago, and then invited planning and zoning because part of their process, their primary product that they test is hemp and lavender. But there will be on occasions where they will test marijuana. And currently our zoning regulations do not allow for testing of marijuana. So we'd have to change that, and it could potentially bring quite a few higher paying jobs to our community, and a higher level of scientists that are doing this sort of lab work and everything.
You said you got to meet with them for a little while?
Uh-huh.
What was your impression of them as a whole?
Oh, very professional, very knowledgeable. They're very warm, nice people, and they work directly with the growers. And I don't know, Sarah, maybe you met with them a little bit longer while we're trying to get her pulled up on Zoom. You want to fill in the council?
Sure. So for the record, I'm Sarah Stober with San Luis Valley Development Resources Group and Council of Governments. Conchetta and Paul were referred to us from Kevin Wilkins, our prior executive director who spent time in Nebraska. Their current laboratory is in Omaha. They had been with University of Omaha many years and chaired the chemistry department, I believe it was, and were given early retirement opportunities and chose to start a new company at that time. Kennebec is one of those companies. It's a fascinating work that they do. They're actually wanting to bring their two of their employees from Omaha with them to relocate here in the valley, and the reason they're looking for the valley or looking at the valley, one is from Kevin's referral, and two, because growers are here, and really probably number one is because of the laws that Colorado has are more progressive than Nebraska. They're also looking into many grant funds and anything from Office of Economic Development and International Trade, because they're bringing a unique expertise here to the Valley. They've also met, we introduced, and it's been a full day, introducing them to key partners that could help them in whatever way possible, but Adams State University's chemistry chair, their hope is to hire some either master's or PhD candidates from the university in their final years to help them get work experience on their resumes so that they may be able to find employment easier. But it's a fabulous, because it's an analytical lab, it brings a lot of variety to an industry we don't have currently in the Valley, and I believe there's only one other lab in the state. So they can do testing for drug enforcement. There's a lot more than just what you probably think comes to mind for marijuana or hemp, but because of all the toxicity levels, it's highly regulated, and they are incredible. Both of them are so knowledgeable. It's amazing. So we're very honored that they would consider the Valley and whatever location works best for them. I can tell you that Alamosa County, I presented to them yesterday on the Rural Jumpstart program, which has also been presented over in Rio Grande County multiple times. They're looking at both counties because they want to get what's going to work best for them, and really appreciate the city considering a change in the code and so forth. I'll sit down, but that gives you an overview.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening.
Can she see us?
No, she can't see.
Okay.
I can allow her to see you guys.
Yeah, why don't you, that'd probably make it easier on her. Concetta, welcome. Can you hear us?
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. This
okay,
is
great.
So we had a nice introduction for you, and we're ready for your presentation.
Okay, let me see if I can get it shared. Okay. Okay, I need to be able to share my screen, I think.
That'd be you.
It's not enabled.
Okay, we're working on that for you. And this is Gigi Dennis talking, so thank you for making the time to meet with council today.
Oh, I'm very happy to. Thank you for the invitation.
Christian.
No, it's not good when we both have
Yeah. That won't make any difference.
Worst feeling when you're in tech.
Hey, it says that I'm the host now.
Okay.
Why is that feedback?
Share screen.
Definitely want to be the man.
Oh, not showing.
She said it's not sharing.
Yeah, I've got an exclamation point on it saying it can't share.
So we're no longer black or cleaner. Oh, there's no linear screen share. I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't think we have anything to compete against that. Is there any way you could send the presentation over here and we could just share it on our screen?
It's actually, I can do that, but it's actually on, I think I have it on Dropbox that I can,
Okay, okay.
DJ has it.
Okay.
yeah, DJ has it, so I shared it with him. Let me,
So can we, how can
have to get the link for you so that you can,
There's notes and does and landsy TV. That's what I do at home when Adam starts getting technical with stuff. I just go and he starts trying to explain it to me, and I'm just like, you know what's happening in my head? What? There's notes and does.
do you want to,
Yeah, go ahead and send it to the web.
is this
I
a
do
different?
look at him sometimes like I'm
Okay,
actually
let's see if we can put the link in the
thinking
chat.
about it.
Let's see.
So I'm wondering if one of the, why could you not have these computers go into a live stream, like a YouTube live?
I don't know that you can.
Okay. I think you can, that's the thing.
You can't?
No, I think you can.
Oh, well, that might be easier.
Well, I think it would. You know, I've been in discussion.
Unless we just all started feeding back, and that might be a problem.
Well, if it wouldn't, it would only be for like presentations. For like, she wants to put presentations.
I'm not seeing the chat.
It's criticize and if it's small print, you can't read it. So, you know, because one time we asked the geeks whether or not you could take that and put it here, and they said it'd be expensive. I don't think it'd be expensive. I think there's actually a way.
Send it to me and say,
Well, if she were to mail us the presentation,
Take a picture of all these tech guys over here.
then we'd have it in front of us, and then we should.
Do you know if there's specific
Or the presenter would
share
just
screen
say,
settings that
okay,
need
now
to
go to
be
the
on
next
for
screen.
me to show it to
Go
your
to the,
friends?
I think we could handle that. I can handle
I'm
that.
aware of
But if I get in trouble, I can say, hey, Larry, help me.
Right. I've been talking with Gigi about how we're going to redo the AV in this place so that we can do this. That's the problem. Zoom over there.
It looks like it should be okay.
But the problem that we've always had with Zoom is that we can't hear what we're saying.
It looks like screen sharing is disabled again.
and so they don't have the
Right.
means of, when we sit there and go blah, 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 the person on the Zoom, through Zoom can't hear us.
Right, because this is these mics are just fed to the recorder. They're not enhancing our voices.
Judy.
Correct.
See, I do know a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't into their system.
Okay, does anyone have,
I don't know who did it.
is there a way for me to
It's kind of funny.
message?
Yeah, so
Through
we're
a
working
text
on
message, the
I
link?
don't know who did it, so I didn't.
I'm pulling it up and sort of.
Something
Okay, very good.
went wrong one night. So critically wrong. And Chelsea
Said he
was
could
trying
make
to
the
get
resolution.
I said, you don't make all out of it.
If you're gonna cut it off here.
Be in 5 minutes.
Right.
We'll fix it.
That's what we decided. And then this is part that makes sense with it.
Well, you don't like what humans.
Unions. Because there's a problem, and here's someone that can fix it. You can't fix it because he's not a part of it. This is about we have whoever can get here quicker.
That's
about how it goes.
mentioned
whenever I try to do something like this.
Well, we're just creating their own schemes thing.
Basically what she said, so I think that could be a mistake.
Thank you for your patience, Concetta. We're working on it.
I mean,
It was back in the forest days, so I
It could be.
call it the forest days.
Yeah.
Shadows.
Want to go outside that? Then it's. Oh, well, then I'm probably sure that's it. I guess Houston, you're saying.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Dale, let's go.
Oh, we're back. Okay, here we go.
Okay, I'll just tell you when to advance slides. This should work just fine.
Sounds good.
Okay, are we good to go?
Yes.
Okay. So as I said, thank you to the City of Monte Vista for allowing me to make this presentation. I know I've talked to some of you. So my company, Kennebec Analytical Services, is a testing lab. And my prior life, I was an academic scientist, so I worked at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for about 12 years in the Department of Biochemistry. And I had the opportunity for a buyout, and I was looking for something new to do, and the state had developed a hemp plan. They'd adopted one. And so I started a testing lab since there wasn't any there, and since we had the expertise. So if you go to the next slide, so the purpose of testing is basically to protect public health. And so it does two things. One, pre-harvest for the plant materials. It helps to distinguish and prove that you have hemp or marijuana. They're different. I'll talk about how they're different. And this testing is key not only to know those levels of THC, which is a Schedule I substance, but also to say that the products are safe for use. So they're taken into, humans either consume them in some way or smoke them or rub them on their bodies, all different ways that they can be absorbed. But basically, you want to make sure that when that happens, it is safe. So on the next slide, I think I'll be able to introduce you to our team. So the three characters on the upper left are myself, Paul Black, and Vern Powers. We basically conceived of the business along with the help of James Allen. So Paul and I were faculty members at the University of Nebraska. Paul was the chair and Charles Bessie professor of biochemistry, while I was George Holmes University professor of biochemistry as well. Our expertise is in fatty acid and lipid metabolism, and as you may know, that the cannabinoids act through the same pathways. So scientifically, this was of interest to me because of the effects that you can have when you take in cannabinoids. Vern Powers is the former mayor of Hastings, Nebraska, and he was very concerned about 10 or 12 years ago with nitrates in the water. In fact, many wells coming from the Ogallala Aquifer were shut down because of high nitrates. And we actually began working with Vern on remediation using algae. So we developed a company called Vestal. And Kennebec actually is a derivative of Vestal in that it became the testing arm of this research and development business. So there are now two businesses, Vestal and Kennebec, which would like to move both of them at the same time. So within the lab, the people are James Allen. He's actually currently also a research assistant professor at UNL right now. He helps us with all development of standard operating procedures, and he can handle our instrumentation and put it together and tear it down. Inga Krasilskaya is our lab director. I recruited her from a lab at UNL. Her expertise is in plant biology, plant molecular biology, and metabolites. So the metabolites are the chemicals that we analyze. Tyler Echtenkamp helps Inga. He's a technical specialist or technician. He's very important to the team. He actually worked for Cargill for 3 years before coming to Kennebec. He's worked for us for now a year. Sonora Majid is actually a former student of mine, and she worked at Kennebec for a year while we were setting up. And then she went away for a doctoral program in pharmacy. So she's at UNMC Pharmacy School, but she's maintaining our social media. So the expertise that's required for a lab of this type is analytical chemistry, specialty instrumentation using mass spectrometry, and then various fields of biochemistry and plant science. Next slide. So we've spent the past 2 years acquiring a lot of credentials that make us a testing lab that can be used by both nationally and internationally, depending on the rules surrounding cannabis, hemp, and marijuana. So the first thing that we have is a certificate of accreditation to ISO, or International Standards Organization, 17025. This is specific to testing laboratories, and with this certification, we're also certified through ILAC MRA. That's an international certification, so we have both of those. As a hemp testing lab, we are registered with the DEA, and that's our DEA registration number. We're also a primarily women-owned business that's registered with the government, so we can have government contracts, and as I'll explain, we actually do have some testing contract with the Department of Justice. And then finally, but not least, is that we are registered with the USDA, and we're the only laboratory listed for hemp testing in Nebraska and several other Midwestern states. Next slide, please. So for pre-harvest plant testing, we do this for hemp specifically. We're contracted with the Nebraska Department of Agriculture for 2021-2022. We've just started this year also serving South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Both of these mean that we do the pre-harvest testing, we determine the THC levels, and then we report those levels both to the state as well as to USDA. The Midwest Hemp Database is a project out of the University of Illinois that involves growers, and the growers actually sign up to give a lot of information about when they plant, what the environmental conditions are like, how the plants are growing, and then in the end they get reduced costs for testing. And all of the testing data is acquired and tabulated and then reported so that we have a lot of information about hemp specifically, so fiber, grain, and cannabinoid varieties, CBD varieties. Next slide. As I mentioned, we are testing for law enforcement. This occurred because the state of Nebraska state crime lab can only test THC levels in plant material. And so we contacted them because we can test, we're accredited by the same agency as the crime lab, by the way, by ANAB. We can test things like extracts, distillates, tinctures, gummies, wax, shatter, hash, all kinds of things. So we've only recently been doing this, but we test for city, county law enforcement, so police departments and sheriff's departments, and we've also worked on a couple of cases with the Department of Justice. Now, because of the interstate transport laws, this is not something that we would be able to continue in Colorado. They would have to be able to deliver these to us, any samples to us safely and within state laws, which is very difficult to do. Next slide. So we also have private clients, so that includes hemp growers. For the hemp growers, we'll do potency testing pre-harvest leading up to when they call the state in. And so we do testing for them to make sure that the way that we test is exactly the same as we will test for the state and USDA to report in terms of harvest. So what this means is that the state will come in, it tests the growers. We have a 15-day rule. So from the time that it is sampled, the acreage is sampled, to the time that the grower can harvest is only 15 days. So this has to turn over really fast. So we've been doing that within 72 hours for Nebraska and South Dakota growers. We also use lavender, and for the lavender we specifically are measuring terpenes, which are the volatile compounds that give the scent to the flower. We test for processors and extractors, so we have processors that are turning the biomass into smokables, or extractors that are extracting by CO2 or ice water or various different, or distillation. And so we can test those products for them. And then those that are product manufacturers, so they're making things like oils, tinctures, aromatherapeutics if they're lavender, and then a variety of other foods, baked goods, creams, lotions, potions, and soap. We've done all of these. Next slide. So in addition to cannabinoids, as I mentioned, we do terpenes that are volatile compounds that themselves have some bioactivity and have been attributed some health benefits. We do that both for cannabis as well as for lavender. We also measure the contaminants, which are pesticides, mycotoxins, and heavy metals. We do not at this time measure residual solvents and microbials. That's a plan to add in the future, but we do have the technical expertise to do that. We're very well qualified to measure these different compounds. If you're interested in references about testing, I belong to a group called the National Cannabis Laboratory Council. It's a group of about 20 labs across the United States, and we're developing standardized advice, really, for the federal government and for the USDA in order to help to harmonize the testing both for potency and for safety. And we expect in the future that THC will be descheduled, it moves from Schedule 1, and we also expect that marijuana will be legal nationally, but we don't believe that testing will go away. It will still be required, again, for potency and for safety. I belong to ASTM D37. This is a standardization group. We're developing the standards for cannabis. That means the standard operating procedures. AOAC is another group that does something similar. And ASTM and AOSC both advise NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And all of these are working to provide us with national and international standards for testing all of these different chemicals. Next slide, please. Okay, so the difference between hemp and cannabis is shown on this slide, and cannabis is hemp and marijuana both belong to cannabis sativa L. They are distinguished by their THC levels, and this is really human activity and breeding that has separated these two. The plant is not different. Hemp is controlled in Colorado under the hemp program and the Department of Agriculture. It has its own set of rules. It actually was a plan that was rolled out not very long ago. Marijuana, on the other hand, is controlled by the Marijuana Enforcement Division under the Department of Revenue. I have been in contact with both of these agencies because it's important that some of their rules are dissimilar and you have to be aware of them. You have to be licensed by each one of them. But the supervision of the laboratories is done by one group within the Department of Health and Human Services. It's called the Colorado Public Health Department of Health and Environment. And I've also been talking with them because we want to make sure that when we develop, when we move to Colorado, we have all of our ducks in a row to make sure that we're meeting Colorado standards. Next slide, please. So this is just showing you where we are right now. So we're in Lincoln, Nebraska. We have a very unobtrusive building. There's nothing marking it as a cannabis testing laboratory. You can see two small signs in the windows. One is for Vestal, the other is for Kennebec. Nowhere on the signs or anywhere does it say cannabis. We're located on the right side. You can see we're in an industrial park. And that's what's shown there. Next slide, please. So this shows our laboratory layout right now. In this building, we have about 3,000 square feet. The security is motion detectors as well as cameras around every entrance that's possible. We have a security agency that monitors it, as well as the Lincoln Police Department. This particular schema was written up for the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, when we were applying for our registration. So you would enter this front entrance that says exit unit 2. You enter there. That is the only door that is open and only during business hours. All the other doors remain locked at all times, and they have keyed entry. We can disarm the security system off an app off our phones, and I have control of anyone who has access to be able to do that. So this right-hand side is basically the public rooms, if you will. So there's a lobby where we take the samples in. We can people that are coming in to drop off samples. We make sure that they've been logged into our computer data system, or we help them to log in. Everything is done through an online system. If it's law enforcement, the package that they bring in is photographed. It's then opened, and with the person in the room, we inspect what they're giving us. It's usually very small samples. It might be one vape pen. These are then photographed. Their chain of custody forms are photographed. The data is entered, and then we begin another chain of custody. The samples from there pass through to CAS Lab 1, which is on the left-hand side. And that's the lab where we do most of the data analysis or the analytical work. CAS Lab 2, if you look there, that's the lab really that the samples go to for storage. And so the storage includes a cabinet that's marked W, and that is a metal locked cabinet that's bolted to the wall. And it contains samples that can be kept at room temperature. P is a 4-degree or kind of a refrigerator that we keep standards and various things in. Q is an ultra low freezer on -80. Some of our samples and all of our standard materials go into that for long-term storage. Now, some samples, like hemp samples for pre-harvest, must be held for 3 months. And so we have enough storage capacity for those. Usually law enforcement samples are returned as quickly as possible to the law enforcement agency unless we have used the entire sample in the analysis. The other bits of this room are equipment that we need, and S is storage. If you go into CAS Lab 1, that's where the major equipment is, and I actually have a video that I'm going to show you so we can take a walk through. And there is music to this video, so unfortunately I won't be able to talk over it. You'll have to ask questions at the end. So if we go to the next slide, okay, that shows a picture of me and Inga working on our one of our main instruments. That's a UPLC for cannabinoid analysis. The next slide will begin our video. So advance it one more time and the video should start. Oh no, it didn't. Can you get the video to start? No, it didn't start. Let's see. Where are we? You know, I think it's because, it may be because of we're not running it as a PowerPoint, we're viewing it as a PowerPoint. So can you look where it says open? Maybe it would be there. Yeah, try that. Yes. I think it's just slow loading. Bring it down and find the video. If you scroll down, I forget the slide number, but it's further down. Okay, you can probably scroll through this pretty fast, just advance them. Okay.
It does not seem as much as play the video.
Try one more advance.
Oh, yeah.
One more. Back up. I had to run yesterday.
Do you by chance have a YouTube link to the video?
No, sorry.
DJ, do you by chance have a direct link to the video in Dropbox?
No, it was just embedded.
Just embedded?
Yep.
If you go back to where we were viewing before, you might be able to download it. Yes, you can download it.
They watch you running this meeting. Aren't you running this meeting? I couldn't let it go. You'd be disappointed if I let it go.
That's the sound, but I don't see it. Okay.
Alrighty, so let's go into
So if you go to the last, really the last presentation slide is number 14, I should say. So I just wanted to give you an idea that this is what our product is. This is what a customer gets. And they get a certificate of analysis. This particular one is for THC compliance. And so we've shown on it a picture of the sample that we analyzed, and next to it is actually the exact chromatogram that came out of the instrument. And then below it is the measurements for THC. And we measure to 4 decimeters, and we also give a measure of the uncertainty. That's the experimental variability. And so the certificate also contains, information about our accreditation and the sample itself. So this is kind of our official documentation of our results. So the next slide is the last slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions. I got it.
Would I like to open up the business in Monte Vista, or are we just, what are we learning from you? I know what we learned from you today, but I wasn't sure if you've already found a location and you want to open up in Monte Vista.
So I don't have a specific location yet. I spent a day last week looking at different places. I guess we've narrowed it down to Alamosa and Monte Vista. It's all depending on finding a building that we can adapt without, too much expense to be a laboratory, and outfit it with benches and fume hoods and make sure that it's a secure building and has some parking for customers. The other thing that has been a concern that I've been looking into primarily with the help of the San Luis Valley Economic Development Group is the different rules around cannabis in the counties and in the cities, to understand that. From our perspective, we can't restrict our business to hemp because it's just, it won't pay the bills. There's a lot more testing, not testing required in terms of kinds of things required, but the testing for marijuana has a bigger market than testing for hemp. The hemp market right now has shrunk incredibly, as you may know. A year ago, I had a very different attitude about hemp than I do right now, because CBD prices and availability is dropped to, by some estimates, less than 50% of what it was last year. And we've seen this, in Nebraska, we had, I think, 85 growers in 2021, and we only have 40 growers this year in 2022. Most of our pre-harvest sampling right now is for grain and fiber coming from South Dakota. And I think that testing is actually going to go away, because those strains do not have very much THC in them. There's really no need for testing. They don't ever get hot. So Monte Vista, I think, is a great town. It's so cute. And I think its location is advantageous to the growers and to the product producers. The question just been, is it going to be allowed? Because we will have to bring in samples from other areas. Hemp samples can be mailed, they can be shipped. Marijuana samples cannot, so they have to be brought in. So the customer client would have to bring them to our location, or we would have to go and do a pickup for them.
Are you finding the San Luis Valley to be more of a central location for you? Is that why you've made the decision to try to come to Alamosa or Monte Vista?
Well, it was actually trying to be practical and going where there's a need. So There are no labs in San Luis Valley. The labs are either in Durango, which is 3 hours away, or Pueblo, which is almost 3 hours away. And from understanding is there has been problems with long wait times to have those, to get the samples to those labs. And as you can imagine, you want to turn this over pretty fast. You have a batch of CBD gummies that have been made, and you want to test those gummies immediately and get them onto market. You don't want to wait a month. The same is true with your plant materials. If we're talking about hemp harvesting, Colorado fortunately has a 30-day lead, not a 15 like Nebraska. But you want those samples to be assayed so you can tell the grower, yes, you pass, you're under 0.3%, you can harvest and sell your product. I also like about the other thing that we've looked at for San Luis Valley is an association with Adams State, being, long-time academicians. We want to have a close collaboration with the university, and Adams State has one with CSU, Colorado State University. My husband is a graduate of CSU, is a Colorado native. And we'd like to have access to students and interns that we could bring in that could do the technical aspects as well as learn about the business, as well as interact with the growers and our customers. This has been something that I've done for many, many years, and I love working with young people and training them and helping them find jobs in the future.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Tell her who you are.
This is Barbara. I'm with the planning and zoning here. Are you guys closing in Nebraska, or are you just expanding here? Is this a move or an expansion, I guess?
I'm sorry, I think that you said, is this a move? Would this be a move from Nebraska?
Or is it an
Colorado?
expansion?
Barb.
Come on, microphone's right here.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'll get closer. Is this a move here or an expansion here? Are you closing up?
No, it would be a move. It would be a move because we basically don't have a sustainable business in Nebraska. Nebraska as a state has no laws around products made from hemp. They were really, the governor and legislature was trying to control hemp and make it only viable for fiber and grain. They totally ignored the CBD industry, and they therefore made no guidance around testing except for potency, measuring the amount of THC. Well, we can't sustain our business on that. It's just not possible. We need to be able to do all of the other testing, pesticides, mycotoxins, microbiologies, residual solvents, terpenes. Because there's no requirement for that in the state of Nebraska, products are being sold that, in my opinion, are dangerous. So things like Delta-8 THC, THC acetate, very crude preparations are actually coming from California and Colorado because they can't be sold there, and they're being sold in Nebraska.
Okay. So are all growers required to test, or it's just a choice
Yes.
to test?
No, there's no choice. You're required to test. You're required to report to the USDA. That's the biomass. But then if you're making product from it, that's also being, the Colorado rules are extensive. They're very careful. They're very well defined. And I cheer that. I think it's wonderful.
Okay, my last question is, how do you dispose of your test product then?
Okay, so the pre-harvest biomass is usually in large quantities. As long as it is under USDA rules, it can be composted. So most of that we do compost. Other types of materials have to be rendered not fit for human use. So that generally means we do things like dilute them in an acid, anything that would make them unfit. And then we turn it over as biological waste to a specific company that removes biological waste. We don't have to turn samples over to the DEA or to the law enforcement. But we must for them keep records, so we have a record of what it was, how much we had, how much was used for testing, and then how much was destroyed. And those records are available to the DEA.
Okay, that answered my questions. Thank you.
So, Concetta, this is Gigi, and I've got a question. This next week, we have the president of the University of Colorado coming down, and he's going to be spending a few hours here in Monte Vista. Part of the presentation with him is going to be about what can they do to help us as a community as it evolves around education. And you've mentioned CSU and you've mentioned Adams State. Is there some sort of a partnership or an ask that we can make of them that could be helpful in your decision for relocating?
So is this the university-wide system, or is this the University of Colorado at Boulder specifically?
It's the whole system.
Okay, so, we have learned that Adams State has some programs that are primarily, I think, mechanical engineering. That is going to be a joint degree between Adams State and CSU. I would like to see the same kind of thing that's around agriculture in general, but in agricultural economics, but cannabis as well. So a lot of universities are trying to get in on the cannabis education field, and CSU has some really fantastic programs. They're looking at breeding and whatever. So I think any kind of collaboration that we can have with them would be excellent.
Okay, thank you. Chief, did you have any questions?
I do. It's just how much product will be stored at any given time?
Okay, so our chief of police has a question for you.
Yes.
Yes. How much product would be stored at any given time?
So I can only speak to what we have right now. It's very small amounts. So for any one sample, we don't need very much to test. There's something called batch testing, and so that's defined by by the Colorado rules. So we would keep the sample, and we'd have to follow the rules of Colorado, and I don't know what their length of time for retention is. We catalog everything when it comes in, it barcoded, everything is maintained under the barcode. I know that when we were doing law enforcement testing, I specifically tell them that if it is plant biomass that we're testing, we do not want huge amounts. We don't have storage facilities for large quantities. We keep it to a kilogram or less.
Okay. Okay, he's shaking his head, that's good.
And for, we've, the sampling rules are very different in Colorado. Some of the sampling is done by third-party samplers, some of it's done by the growers themselves. We would adhere to whatever their rules are, and that's why in making this transition and setting up in Colorado, I've been talking to Heather Krug, who's the head of the laboratory program for the state, and her team. And today I had a conversation with the main auditor, and I'm gonna, I want to not look left or right. I want to be a straight line down the road to being compliant with state guidance. And I think that it's important for a lab to be the bridge between the growers and the product manufacturers and the state, so that they don't have any violations. Violations, are bad for everyone.
Okay, and then what is sort of your timeline in all of this?
So really, we're trying to identify a place as soon as possible, because we have to know what it's going to cost us to renovate. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we're compiling a list of potential clients, and I want to make sure that I do a marketing analysis for the valley and the regions close to the valley. There are a lot of testing labs around Denver, and there's some really good ones. I want to understand, the needs of the market, and so I want to get that done in the next couple of months. I would like to be able to move my equipment as early as December, because it's going to take us time to become accredited within the state. Although I learned today that there is a kind of a rapid method for labs that are already accredited in other states. And we would do that for the suite of services that we provide right now. So hopefully we'd be in business and working at least partially by February. And hopefully the full suite of services by June.
Okay.
How many employees do you expect to have on your team?
We're going to start out with 3 people in the lab, plus Paul Black and myself, and then we'll probably get to 10, but probably not more than 10. That doesn't count any student interns we would take. They would be an add-on. And it turns out that I learned that Adams State has a wonderful grant, I think it's from NSF, where they actually have money so that businesses don't have to pay the interns. The grant is going to be able to pay them, so that would be great.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a quick comment, if I may.
Okay.
I can say for Kennebec.
Come over here.
Oh, well.
So that she can hear you as well, Sarah.
Hi, Conchetta, it's Sarah Stober.
Hi.
I just wanted to let City Council know that Conchetta and Paul have done their homework in terms of really looking at this business, the whole picture as an analysis in terms of, like Conchetta was saying, the not only vendors, but what the whole state of affairs of an analytical lab, such as what they want to bring in here. I also introduced them to several banks in the area, and one of the banks is willing to finance this type of venture. The DRG has also offered to partner with them to help them get access to capital and get up and running quickly. So I just wanted to mention that, just to let you all know that they're really not leaving a stone unturned from what we can see. It's rare that we have folks come into the valley that are this prepared, both financially as well as their market analysis, business plan. Everything is intact, and this business is ready to go with modifications to the code. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you possibly be looking at doing other analyticals on other plants in the future? Or are you just going to stick with hemp and cannabis?
So no, actually, as I mentioned, I'm working pretty actively to test for the lavender essential oil business. They need terpenes, a specific set of terpenes, but they also need the contaminant testing because they're putting this in foods, etc. We're also, through Vesto, are doing water and soil analysis. Now, that being said, there is already a lab doing that in the valley, and it's a woman-owned business. It looks really good. I would not attempt to put them out of business. The caveat to this is that when in talking to Heather Krug of the laboratory supervisor, she was saying that there were some rules, she's not sure if they're still in place, whereby if you tested for marijuana, you could not test for anything else except hemp. So I have to look into that, because that would make I'm really happy to be working with the Lavender Group. They're wonderful, and it's another market opportunity, and there's no legalization around lavender and other types of essential flower oils. So it's another market opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then I guess just one other add-on is that we do have the CSU Extension office is based here in Monte Vista, and they're quite helpful, and I don't know if there's an opportunity for a 4-H program and getting high school kids involved in some fashion as far as the hemp side or some of the food products and things. Could be kind of cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I know it was short notice to put you on our agenda, and we appreciate you coming and joining us via Zoom. And we have at least 3 members of our Planning and Zoning Committee listening, and then our 5 members of our City Council. So we'll be back.
Well, thank you all. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm really happy to talk with you anytime.
Okay. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Once she's gone.
Oh.
Is she gone?
Yep.
And DJ may be going to answer this. Realistically, let's just say P&Z at our next meeting said, let's make this happen. Is there a way to even hit a December deadline?
It would be tight, but yes. Because for her to open her business, she also has to get certified and all those things. Like, we could restrict the business license until P&Z is done, while she goes through all the processes and we go through the processes. I wouldn't want to tell her yes if you guys were questioning whether or not you were going to do it, but yeah, I think we could make the timeline, because really the issue is going to be whether or not we issue a business license to conduct that business on that location. And she can go through the purchasing and all of those things while we walk through that, as long as you guys aren't going to at the end go, actually, no. But yeah, no, I believe we can make the timeline as long as that's just the intent of the council.
It has to go through 2 meetings though, right?
So go 2 of theirs, 1 of ours.
Right, okay.
So does planning and zoning have are there any codes on the books now for labs?
Yes, actually it specifically prohibits testing of marijuana labs.
No, well, just for a lab. Let's take marijuana out of the situation.
It is the
A
only
lab.
lab prohibited.
Huh?
That is the only lab prohibited according to code.
That's the only lab prohibited.
Yes.
Too much better. Do we need to take a recess? We had a hard time. Okay, but planning and zoning does have a code for hemp and marijuana labs specifically.
Prohibits marijuana testing labs.
Hence, you could test,
Yeah.
you could test the lavender.
You can test lavender and
Right.
and hemp all day
I'm
long.
just not trying to figure out what's already on the books, so you know what's going to have to.
It would be striking, after reviewing it, it would be striking just the marijuana testing labs from the portion of the marijuana violation codes.
And what
Was
zoning
that
do we
included
allow
in the
them?
original
I would say
referendum?
industrial would be my favorite.
That's what she said, but where do we allow them now currently, without having to change everything?
Labs would be either commercial highway, commercial business, or industrial,
Okay.
would be the uses that they could go into.
So we have plenty of space for it.
We've got space for it. The only concern I do have is the one building they were looking at was Dr. Roberts' dentistry office, because he's looking to sell, and it's laboratory set up, which is great. However, it is in a residential area.
It is in a residential area.
So
It is what?
It's in a residential area because of where it's located. So that is one of the buildings that they were looking at just because of the
That's not
setup.
3,000 square feet.
No, and she's also looking to lease for the first 2 years, finish setting up all of her feasibility, and then purchase to build is her eventual goal. After talking to her for a couple of hours down the road. So I would say commercial business, commercial highway, industrial, and we could restrict it all the way down to industrial if that's what we wanted. So we'd have to look at what property we have available in there, because we have a very small industrial zone.
Yes.
And right now she can't go county because county also has specific language forbidding marijuana testing labs, which they are also interested in changing it, but they have not went down that road yet. Because we are home rule, we can do what we want.
So besides the fact of bringing in some good jobs, does the city actually make anything off of it?
I'm not
It's
sure.
a service, not a sale.
It's a service, not a sales. So I'm not sure that we would make like an actual, like, there's no sales tax for it or any of that stuff.
There's nothing.
No, it's just.
Except for the benefit that they're here and it's easier to go shop at Safeway than it is to go to Alamosa.
And 10 employees at $50,000 to $60,000 plus the doctors at close to 2 to 3, depending on what they pay themselves. We're looking at a substantial amount of income coming into the valley and not leaving the valley.
Right. Potential more children at our schools and.
Homes.
And has she actually come here?
Yes.
Yeah, we met with her.
We spent about, what, 2 hours with her?
Yep. Actually, here.
I was gonna say,
In that room.
Lincoln's a lot warmer than here.
Well, she currently resides in Durango.
Oh, okay.
So Martha, if your question was where can it be located, I think I was hearing you ask that. You've got permitted uses as commercial services. You don't specifically address lab testing in any of the zoning categories that I see. Permitted in commercial highway as far as commercial services go, and also in industrial. If you go to residential, it's probably going to take a variance procedure.
And I can understand that. I was just thinking, because I know that we have, for example, the Edward and Kennedy Healthcare. I'm sure they have a lab in there. It's a lab. Now, it's not a marijuana lab, and I think that's what's going to hang us up, regardless of what side of the issue you're on. And I would just like to encourage everybody, please, don't do that. She's not talking about putting in a dispensary. She's not talking about, making it for sale anywhere. And while she was talking, I did a little bit of really quick surfing here. What I found was that even though marijuana had been legal and medically useful since the 1800s, it wasn't until around the turn of the century that the U.S. decided, ooh, no, we're not going to do this. Do you want to know why? I'm just going to read this to you because I think this is extremely sad. This was at least partly motivated by Mexican immigration to the U.S. around the time of the 1910 Mexican Revolution during the Eric Schlosser, author of Reefer Madness, blah, blah, blah. It's a book. Anyway, then it goes on the prejudices and fears that greeted those peasant immigrants also extended to their traditional means of intoxication, which was smoking marijuana. Police officers in Texas claimed that marijuana incited violent crimes, aroused a lust for blood, and gave its user superhuman strength. I hadn't seen a whole bunch of people flying around since they legalized it here in Colorado. So, and the rumors spread that Mexicans were distributing this killer weed to unsuspecting American school children. So part of the reason that we have some of the mores that we have today are based in racial prejudice. And we don't even know that. And I think that's very, very sad. I'm going to take a minute, and you're probably going to get bored with me. I'm going to tell you just a little story. It's one that I learned a long time ago. Young woman having Christmas dinner at her house, first time ever, and she calls her mother and says, "Mom, how do I cook the ham?" Mom says, "Well, you cut it in half, you put it in 2 pans, you put it on 2 different shelves in the oven." She said, "Why do I have to cut the ham in half?" Mom said, "Well, I don't know. That's just what your grandmother taught me how to do." So she called her grandmother. She said, "Grandma, why do I have to cut the ham in half?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. That's how my mother taught me how to do it." Fortunately, her great-grandmother was still alive. She called her great-grandmother. She said, "Great-grandma, why do I need to cut the ham in half to cook it?" She said, "You don't. You do not have to cut that ham in half. I simply, at that time in my life, didn't have a pan big enough for the whole lamb." Now, I say that story, and I know it's a little bit silly, but I think it's important that we look and see, where do our biases come from? Where do our prejudices come from? We need to look at this as a lab that will come to town and bring jobs to a place where people need some good paying jobs. And I think that will, I can't see where a family's breadwinner couldn't benefit from that. And the family could benefit from that. And it might even raise some people out of poverty.
Do we have the original language in the ballot question that was put to the public? Because if we've already fought this fight, regardless of what the outcome was, regardless of what the reason people voted the way they did, the last time we fought over marijuana, it tore the city in half. And it was nasty and it was ugly.
Well, and I'm hoping that it wouldn't do that if we review why we have our feelings about this. Why do we have are they fact-based, or are they because our mama tells us to cut the hair?
We've already had this fight. If the voters decided they did not want, and I don't know what the language is off the top of my head, but if they already voted on this and the vote went the other way, then why are we going to dig up old stuff?
But did they vote on the lab, or did they vote on dispensaries? And
well, that's why we need to know the original language.
They voted on dispensaries.
Because really, this is nothing more than a lab.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. If it weren't marijuana, if she said she was testing lavender, rose, and celery oil, none of us would have a problem.
Well, that said, if we're saying marijuana, and I am saying, personally, I think marijuana has been bad for Colorado. What it has brought to our state has changed the character of our state, and it wasn't positive, regardless of the jobs that it bought. That said, because I feel that way, I can't in good conscience say, well, I'm fine to bring in these jobs because it's a lab that's benefiting from the marijuana industry. I can't in good conscience say on one hand, well, no, I'm against marijuana, but I'm okay with this because it brings jobs to Monte Vista. So personally, I don't see how, if the residents of Monte Vista voted against marijuana, and they did, maybe it was biased, maybe it was fact-based, I don't know. Each person came to their own decision, and they said no to marijuana. I can't in good conscience say, marijuana is not okay here, but because we want this, I can justify it in my head that it's not.
I agree with that. I absolutely do. And concede your point. And I think that you're wise to ask to see what the wording on the ballot was. That's fantastic. What I hope to see us do, what I hope we can all look at, is what is the benefit? What are the downfalls? And as far as marijuana negatively affecting Colorado, there's a lot of theories out there as to why that happened. Number one, Colorado was, I believe, the first state to legalize it. If we weren't the first, we were the second. That means that, and I'll just use the word, potheads from all over the United States, they finally had their Disneyland.
Well,
yay. So they came here. No, let me, if you don't mind, let me finish my point. They came here. They caused trouble. They raised homelessness. It was awful. I agree with you. When they wanted to open up a dispensary in Villa Grove and I lived in Saguache County, I fought it. And I fought it hard. Because it was going to bring people here. And bring homelessness here. And bring trouble here. However, what has happened is that over the years, we've seen it legalized in more and more cities and counties. People don't have to go anywhere anymore. It's not like we're going to be bringing any of this in anymore. In fact, if it were federally legal, nobody'd have to move anywhere. So we wouldn't have any more problems than what we already have.
Yeah, but Martha, by your own admission, potheads, the users of marijuana, are the ones that cause the trouble.
They are the ones that cause
marijuana evidently wasn't good for their lives.
It wasn't. Just
regardless of what it's done to the state and to what we deal with here in the San Luis Valley, it was not good for their lives. So profiting from that, I can't do in good conscience, regardless if it's good jobs. And frankly, they're going to bring in 5 people of their own. At their biggest build out, there'll be 10. 5 more jobs in Monte Vista.
To start.
She told us max size was 10.
Okay.
And she's got 5 for 5 jobs.
There are clonazepam is deadly. Zoloft, Xanax, all of that. How many people? I just wonder how many people in Monte Vista take those prescription drugs, take them correctly, and none of us know about it. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. It's the troublemakers.
You can make arguments and keep switching the argument from one to the next, Martha. Marijuana has not been good for the state. We've already decided for Monte Vista, the voters decided, much less the council, that marijuana is not good for Monte Vista.
What year was that? If you don't mind me asking, I don't think I was here
then. It had
then.
been 6 or 7 years ago.
6 or 7 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last 6 or 7 years? As far as the legalization of marijuana?
You mean here in Monte Vista? What are you asking?
Statewide.
I'm unaware of any changes.
I'm unaware of changes in the
Well,
state, but the plus to us is that New Mexico and other states around us have allowed it, so now they're going back home.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Now, I think that, and I will take the blame for this, I think we've kind of gotten off topic here. We're talking about the legalization of marijuana, and that's not what the issue is. The issue is, do we let a scientific lab come in here? That's really all it comes down to. It's a scientific lab. It is well controlled, as any lab should be, regardless of what they're testing. Are they testing new prescription drugs? Are they testing new weaponry? Are they testing whatever? Whatever is being tested is always, security's always high. Because that's why it's called testing, because they don't know what it's going to do. So there's going to be a lab. It's going to be a secure building. They're going to have live, warm body security building people there. She did say they would have a security company. So there will be people, there will be security officers of some sort.
that's where they're at now, because it's not like we have
She just
security.
said monitoring, she didn't say that they were present.
Yeah, they did say they were present.
Okay, they're monitoring. Okay,
So,
still.
I think we should find out what the wording was on the ballot 6 years ago. Almost
Dale,
6.
could we do a workshop between council and P and Z
Yeah, this is
before
gonna
our
be
first,
PNC
before our
first.
next meeting, DJ, which is
Yeah.
what, soon?
We gotta talk about that, actually. No.
Okay.
I mean, unless you guys wanted to do it like next Monday or Tuesday, you're looking at very tight timelines to make it all work. Or before our next P and Z meeting.
I'll make myself
The fact,
available
because you do
anytime.
labs.
Well, but at your P and Z meeting, we can do
That's
a
why I
work
asked that
session
question,
prior
is
to
if they would
it.
do more than that.
Yeah.
Based on some of the
Before we
issues
open
we
the
found
meeting, or
here.
like
if
start
that
earlier?
Start
is
earlier.
like an
Okay.
open door, because I know what it cost us
Let's-
to try to find
let's
a lab
do
in
that,
Sands,
and if
so
they
it
wanna
samples
come,
off,
that's
but,
fantastic. Let's do that, okay.
What night?
okay.
But her focus was, I mean, it's THC testing is her focus. That's what it's going to be.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
For safety on it. So what are we talking now? You said something about when?
We're gonna have a work session for P and Z prior to our next meeting, and if you guys wanna attend, we can make that work. Or P and Z can have their discussion, because before it ever gets to council, it's gonna have to make it through P and Z. And if we don't make it out of P and Z, then not that your guys' opinion doesn't count, but it doesn't get to you at that point.
So when is that work session?
That is, so the next P and Z meeting is supposed to be the 22nd, but I believe it was pushed to the 29th. But that's, I gotta talk to P and Z about that.
Is that gonna be too long for? Okay, so that's gonna be within her timeline?
That'd be
Okay,
fine.
so it's the 29th?
Still there.
Damien, are you still online?
No, he left, I'm waiting for.
You know, we were just trying to reconstruct the ballot situation over here on the computer. If what I just saw is correct, and I'm trying to summarize that, it seems like what we did is impose a excise tax if the council approved.
No, there was two ballot measures. There was one for the tax, and there was a separate one to it.
Was there a separate one for the legalization of it?
Yeah.
So,
So there was an 8, and then we narrowed it down. There was an 18% tax, I believe it was, and then we narrowed it down to one small area in the community that it could go if it passed. That
we're only seeing the.
We never
tax
finished
part of this.
we never finished the language in the zoning. We had something in place so that if it passed, we were ready, but we never.
Never finished it.
It's.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It never went to you guys.
It never went to you guys, but we had something at that time that said like, here's where it can go.
Yeah.
So if it had passed by the voters, you made sure that you made it as
We were ready.
difficult as possible
We were
for it
ready.
to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though the
I gotta
vote.
say that more
That's good to
than
know, because I was in the
California.
understanding that it was in place.
Okay, yeah, I don't,
You didn't.
yeah, you guys, it never made it past us, and yeah, it's still.
I don't even know if we still have
Yeah.
a copy of it.
So what did
I
the,
don't know.
do you have there what the ballot said? What the people actually voted for?
That's what we're trying to find.
We have the ballot language for the tax
Okay,
from CML, but not the second resolution. I'm still looking that up. If that was passed.
Because there were two questions. One was the amount of the tax, and that one passed. And the other one was
To allow
whether it
marijuana,
was allowed.
and it failed.
whether it was allowed in, I mean, does this, was
Well,
it,
that's what we need to know.
was it just,
In Monte Vista was what,
okay,
but
for use? I mean, I know it's not for sale, but
I
is
think
it
was
illegal,
for
is it illegal in
sale
Monte
or
Vista to
growing
use?
Myself, but I didn't swear to that.
I remember right, it was pretty expensive
Sorry?
to sell it.
It's just,
I remember right.
it was just to sell it.
So,
The only reason I think it was
So-
sold out grow houses was because Pueblo came down and talked.
Oh, yeah, we had a workshop with Pueblo West.
Pueblo County.
But we don't have any grow houses, right? Because we said no?
Because we voted no on it.
Okay,
So that's why I think it includes.
and this isn't gonna be a grow house?
No.
Okay.
Well,
could we do the research on that and you guys email
Yeah,
it
we
to
can
us?
find that out pretty quick.
And then we'll get it to all of us?
I think ours followed right after South Forks And South Fork voted no to allowing it and yes to taxing it.
And that's what we
That's
did
what we
before.
did.
That's what we did too.
That's what they didn't want.
No to allowing it, but yes, but
Because
taxing it?
if it was allowed. if you
Okay,
voted
they
no.
need to understand they got a ham that'll fit in a pan. Because that's
We voted
just
the
silly.
exact same way.
No to allowing it, but yes to taxing it.
No, because if everybody else voted
what
to
we
allow it,
did.
then you wanted
That's
it
what we did
taxed
as well.
if it was allowed.
And we voted to tax it to the maximum amount that
Right.
it could tax.
Yep.
And that's
We-
why.
We put that wording in there. So,
But that all pertains to the sale of it.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is in place if it ever passes the
Okay.
tax amount.
And I'm not saying that we should change that.
So are we set for the 29th or no?
Yes, I mean, we have a public hearing that's been notified for the
Okay.
29th. I know that.
So what time are we doing this work session then?
The public hearing is set for 6.
So just 5 o'clock work with anyone who wants to come?
5 on what day?
Except for 5.
Set for 5:30, I'm sorry.
5:30?
Yes.
The public hearing is 5:30?
Yes.
So 5 o'clock on the 29th.
Where is that at?
Here.
Here.
5 o'clock.
Yeah,
On the 29th?
yes.
She said 5.
Yes.
I will do my best to be here by 5. For you guys.
And what do you want staff to have ready on the 29th for
Definitely
discussion?
that ballot question.
Okay, okay.
And then if we could just actually have the big map for P and Z as to locations, like, so council can see it as well of commercial highway.
Yep,
industrial.
the zoning map, absolutely.
Okay, anything
So-
else you can think of?
Maybe provide the actual code where it says we allow it and don't.
I'll have paper copies of that.
Okay.
Okay. So everybody's ready for that so we can carry on? Okay, well, we are going to recess
Thanks.
out of council to a public hearing on the family employee.
You want me to open that?
Yes, sir.
So not the resolution now, because the resolution's farther down on the agenda.
Okay.
This is the public hearing.
Okay, we don't have the notice of the public hearing, do we?
No.
Okay, so this is a public hearing on do this by rote here, on the participation in the state-run paid family and medical leave insurance program, which is known as FAMLY, and we were required to have a public hearing on this matter. I think we can read the first part of this to kind of explain, though, what the nature of the public hearing is. So in November of 2020, Colorado voters approved Proposition 118, which established a state-run paid family and medical leave insurance program, which is called FAMLY, F-A-M-L-I, and the state's purpose for creating the program is to ensure all Colorado workers have access to paid leave in order to take care of themselves or their family during life circumstances that pull them away from their jobs. And under FAMLY, employers and their employees are both responsible for funding the program and may split the cost 50-50. Premiums are set at 0.9% of the employee's wage, with a 0.45% paid by the employer and 0.45% paid by the employee. And the premiums required for FAMLY will be collected starting January the 1st, 2023, and benefits will begin on July the 1st, 2024. As a local government, the city of Monte Vista may decline to participate in FAMLY following a public hearing and a vote of the governing body. And if the city declines to participate in FAMLY, city employees will still have the option to participate in the program and remit premiums to the state. So this is the public hearing on the decision of whether to participate in FAMLY, and the city staff has recommended that the council decline participation in family and decline to withhold and remit the employee's share of premiums for city employees who elect family coverage. And just as a matter of information, the municipalities that we have worked with in the valley have likewise declined to participate in the program. With that, if you would like to go ahead.
I did send out a memo on August 22nd to all employees. I only got one response back, and as you can see, unless some of these people have a comment, I only got one response, so I will read that response. It came from Miss Irene Ariano.
You know what? Hang on, you guys. I think procedurally we're not doing this right.
Okay.
And we need to call an official public hearing. That's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
So that this is open for comment by anyone. Thus, now Judy is going to read the only public comment that we've received, because this is the opportunity for employees to step in and argue for or against this. So we're officially in a public hearing.
Officially. Okay. As part of the public hearing, then I'd like to read a comment from Miss Irene Ariano. She says, I think we should leave it as is, as we are currently receiving the same benefits at no cost to the employee or the city. With our wages as low as they are and everything else rising in price, I do not think it is beneficial to our employees. Thank you, Irene. That's the only comment I thought, so.
Okay, are there further comments from the public on, or any of the employees on the Family Act? No. You'll need to state your name and approach the podium if you're going to address this. Okay, you've heard the comments from staff. Did you want to make any comments yourself?
No, sir.
Okay. So, with that, we can close the evidentiary portion of the public hearing. Were there any more comments from staff? Anita, do you have any comments at all on this? Okay. And this matter would be then remanded for a decision by the city council with regard to whether to decline participation in family, and then we can continue through the rest of the resolution, I think.
Okay, we'll call back into session so we can finish up with the resolution. Resolution number 2022-09.
Well, don't you guys want to ask any questions amongst yourself before you vote on the resolution? Are there any questions? Okay. We can finish with the resolution.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2022-09 to opt out of the FAMLI.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2022-09, resolution declining full participation in the Colorado State-run paid family and medical leave insurance program. Is there any more discussion?
Let me just read the two sections that you'd be acting on, Mayor. The City Council finds and determines that with regard to the public hearing on the decision of whether to decline participation in family, notice was given and the hearing was conducted in accordance with the regulations adopted by the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment and codified as 7 CCR 1107-2, Section 2, Family Participation. The City Council, acting by on behalf of the city, hereby declines full participation in family to include declining to collect and remit employee premiums to the state for those employees who elect coverage under family. The City Council further directs the city staff to bring the matter of revisiting the decision to decline participation in family before a future City Council by no later than 8 years from tonight's vote. If you vote on that, you would be passing, approving, and adopting this resolution on the 15th day of September 2022 by the City Council of the City of Monte Vista on the first and final reading by a vote of yes.
Counselor Foster,
Aye.
Counselor Locke,
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Segala,
Aye.
Mayor Becker.
Aye.
Motion carries to approve resolution 2022-09 to opt out of the FAMLI.
There's one caveat here too. Did you want to mention that?
If your decision is voted on, they also have to notify someone within the staff, be it your administrator, has to notify employees within 30 days of that decision. And they also have to take the next step of registering with the state FAMLI program, which actually is not even active yet, as far as I can find out today, and notify them of the town's determination of their decision.
We will notify the employees.
Thank you.
I have that on my calendar too.
All right, we got good with the resolution. We'll be going to staff proposals reports. PD.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I don't have very much. We finally got the last of our new cars in this week, so we got all of our cars in service, which is nice. And I was down at city shops today, and Dave even commented how nice it was. He's not seeing the police cars anymore, so it really truly is freeing up a ton of his time. The other thing I think that we're going to see a huge benefit for is gas, because these V6s are so much more efficient on gas than those big old V8s and stuff. So, and they still have plenty of power and stuff. So I'm hoping that it's going to take us a little bit to see that the reward of that. But we're already seeing some. I know just me driving and stuff. The fuel it's incredible how much better it is than the cars. So that's good. So thank you. Code enforcement. We're still working on hiring code enforcement. I did have a conversation with Sheriff Robinson. They are interested in maybe doing a joint animal control officer, because now granted they don't have any codes for animal control in the county, but they're interested in maybe a sharing, because our code enforcement, if we could move animal control away from code enforcement and have some kind of thing like that, that'd be nice. That way when we get somebody for code enforcement, they can focus strictly on code enforcement, which is the bigger lift for that position. So we're gonna do a little bit more with it. She's got some ideas, and they have a person that's actually interested in it. And you can get some certifications where they're like level ones, like dealing with dogs and cats and things like that, all the way up to like level 4, which is like dealing with cattle and horses and stuff like that. So we're gonna work on that a little bit more. And the good thing is it may save us some money too. All about saving money. The only other thing I've got is that we've been spending a lot of time in the school zones, doing traffic enforcement as well as walking in the schools and stuff like that. So, and that seems to be going really good. And then we will make sure that the parade happens, as well as the bonfire. I already sent the fire chief an email while we were sitting here, so hopefully we should be good. Other than that, if you don't have, I don't have anything. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how involved you guys are. Like, do you guys get to any of the school board meetings or have any input about like the crosswalks? And the only reason I'm saying is because like I drop my kids off at school every morning, or my wife does, and like right here at the Bill Metz, there's the crosswalk.
Okay.
And then like 1 foot, maybe 2 feet at the most, there's a parking, and there's a Jeep or a car or somebody that works at the school that parks like smack to the crosswalk. And I'm like, man, I think there should be some extra space between the crosswalk and the first parking spot, because it's like literally like this far, like it looks like this far, like the width of the table from the crosswalk to the front car. And I'm like, kids are running and all that, so I just...
Great observation, and there is some things you can do simply with some painting and stuff. So I will go down there first opportunity and take a look at that, and then get with Rob and see if there's something to do. I think that's an easy fix, so great observation.
Cool. Awesome.
Anything else? 1 month from the avalanche.
Go Blues.
1 month.
Planning.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. It's been a long night, so I promise I'm only going to take about an hour. We've got a lot of things going on in planning and zoning. No, it would be super quick. So public planning and zoning, as you guys now know, we'll have a public meeting later on this month. It's going to be discussing a special review use for Juan Naranjo's property. I'm working on 3 grants right now. First one is a technical assistance grant from the Sonoran Institute, which is available because Gigi, Rob, and myself all went to their Water Smart workshop. And so what this grant is a technical assistance grant to help us review some codes. So we're going to look at how to better regulate water use, as well as looking at some landscaping and some other codes as we're in the middle of a 22-year drought. Kind of becoming important that we look at how we're using our water and what the codes say, making sure that they're all current. Because right now we don't have a whole lot of coding, or there's no codification on how we do it. So that's what we're going to look at, and it'll involve public hearings and those kinds of things before it comes to you guys. That's the first grant I'm working on. The second one is a planning grant to look specifically at policies and procedures for affordable housing, such as land acquisition, dedicated funded for subsidizing infrastructure costs, density zoning, among other strategies. So the reason for this grant is to look at what our policies say now, what we can look toward in the future, and then also this grant sets us up for the next grant, which is an incentives grant. And that grant allows us to put in, it can allow us to put in infrastructure for mixed income housing and also mixed construction. So it could possibly, and I use that's important, could possibly give us the ability to help pay for the infrastructure to go out to where we're planning to extend Pintada and those kinds of things. As long as we have housing in there as well as commercial, it could offset those costs for the planning and development that could be going in there. So this first grant is kind of important because it sets us up to make us competitive for the second grant. The last one I'm working on right now, I'm in the beginning stages of applying for Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act grant for the building resilient infrastructure. So this grant's from FEMA. It must go toward a natural hazard. So we're looking at our stormwater management. As most people noticed all summer long, we had some issues with stormwater management. So we're looking at both our discharge into the headwaters as well as collection and moving off city streets to get those all upgraded. This would all come out of the IIJA, the Infrastructure Jobs Grant or Act. So basically, it's money that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. Stormwater is important, but there are a lot of things that are important in the city. If we get this paid for by the federal government, it would be much, much better for us. So this grant's the planning side, which will then again set us up to be competitive for the construction grant, which would come down the road. We're looking probably another year out for being able to start construction on some of that stuff and being able to apply for that grant. So it's a multi-year project that will get down the road. We are in a good place right now as far as matching. There are some ways out there, so typical is 25%. We should be able to get it down to 10% for us because we're at an economically disadvantaged rural community. So because we are that, it knocks from 25 down to 10%. That's kind of a limited time thing, so that means we need to move forward as fast as we can. So that's why I'm working on those 3 grants. In addition to that, I'm working with Rob and Gigi with a company called Wildan, and we're looking at a multifaceted review of our municipal services and what we provide and how we provide it, looking at our water meters, our water supply, energy, so like our lights and those things, just what can we use the IIJA, again the same grant money, to improve and make some of our infrastructure younger. Some of our infrastructure is 1960s, 1970s. So how can we use these grants to improve it? So it's going to be a combination. Wildan helps us set up grants, as well as they can also help us with the energy performance contracting if that's where we need to go. And some of you guys may or may not be familiar with what we did before with that. We're working on the MOU to make sure that we don't get stuck in something that doesn't help us long term. So other than that, again, a lot of things running. So any questions you guys have? That's all I've got. Okay, well, that was shorter than an hour, I apologize.
Thank you.
Do better next time.
Thank you, DJ.
Appreciate it. IT.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet as typical. So for IT, pretty much all we did last month was helped the PD get their citizen contact up and running, which is just gonna help them a lot better with their traffic codes and all that. We've been working on cleaning up redundant wires and equipment around the building. As I'm sure you guys have noticed, if you look pretty much in around the building, you'll just see old equipment throughout the years from this being a hospital all the way up to current day. So we're just working on getting all that cleaned up and just making this building look a little bit nicer with that being out of the way.
Brandon.
Yeah, we're attempting. We're trying. Yeah, we know. We don't like it either, but we're trying.
Okay.
And then we helped out Sky High with drone pictures as they wanted to get some new front cover pictures for their building. And then we've been just trying to repurpose old technology, reset ex-employees' phones so that we have phones ready to go out whenever we get a new employee. That way we're not wasting money just buying new technology when it's not necessary. Is there any questions?
Who's section 107 FAA authorized to run your drone?
Don't know any information about that one.
Okay.
What was the question?
Is anyone on your IT team FAA 107 authorized to fly the drone?
We did have somebody.
I don't know if it's that specifically, but I believe Brandon, not this Brandon, but Brandon Gallegos is, and we are all currently working on getting the training as well, so that we will be certified for flying the drone in situations where he is out.
Just curious.
All right.
And then why don't you tell them what we just did here in the conference room?
So, well, I was gonna roll that over into our next one as we do a month-by-month report. However, I can report on it as this is our last month information, but I'll go and give them an update. So, in our executive council room, we put in a Zoom PC, or a Zoom bar is the best way to explain it. So it is a Zoom head unit that is hooked up to a TV, so for like DJ for instance, he would be able to do his mapping meetings and have people there present while being able to discuss the topic while on a Zoom call with other people around the town or around the valley. So it's just enabling them to work a little bit more comfortably.
Cool.
Anything else?
What's this little white box over here under this desk?
That would be your guys' panic buttons. So Chief, if you want to clean a little bit.
If something goes awry in here, you pull that, it automatically sends a notification to dispatch, so.
Oops. This thing right here? There's that.
Yeah, so
Don't bump with your knee.
You literally just pull it and it automatically sends a notification codes. And then it actually goes to our alarm company and then comes to the dispatch, so it's a pretty quick response. We tested it several times and they work good.
Yeah, and when it sends the response, it'll say, because we've got several of them then in the building, so it'll say
Dale.
city council chambers, so that if they have to respond,
They know where to
they
go.
know where to go.
Yeah, we're front desk or probation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Alright. Is that all?
That's it for me.
Alrighty. Thank you, council. You guys have a wonderful night.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
City Attorney. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
That's what I was about to say. I don't think you want me to be that long. Okay, as quickly as I can. A bunch of different things. As far as Muni Court goes, 50 cases next Wednesday. Mixture of traffic, speeding, following too closely, causing an accident, property damage, trespassing, shoplifting, fights at the Stampede, dance, things like that, disorderly conduct, mixture of those things. Been through all those cases that I have that have been submitted to me, and know where we're going there. I have sat down with George. I told you that we would try to get the new model traffic code passed before the end of the year. Looks like we're going to be able to do that. I hope to have a first ordinance draft. Well, we've already got the first ordinance draft done before the council for first reading at our next meeting. And so this will bring in the 2020 Model Traffic Code. George likes the idea of this type of booklet for his officers. We'll have a total of 10 copies of this type of booklet that has everything in it, including the CDOT confirmation of what we've done, the ordinance itself, the point count, the equipment portion, the moving violations, the penalties, the abandoned vehicles, your definition, and finally your traffic control device inventory on it. So that'll take a public hearing, so it'll probably, the way that that'll probably set up, you got to do 2 readings on the ordinance and so forth. Final should be in by our meeting in November with our first reading next month. So we'll be ready to go on that, I think. I've worked with George and Gigi separately on some personnel matters and dispositions. And land use, 3 Mile Plan, we've reviewed that. It appears DJ has drafted that. It appears legally sufficient. The real challenge there in the annexation is implementation, as all of you know. So we toured the Valley Theater. Kyla Smith happened to be over there, and she was very excited about the possibilities with her dance troupe of what could be accomplished in there. So I think you've got a real gem there that we have to come together on a united vision for that particular entity that we own, and could well be the focal point of future growth on Adams Street and entertainment and dining and so forth. I have a lot of visions about that in my own head. P&Z, let's see, okay, well, yeah, that's coming up. Seth and I will be attending CML's attorney training seminar in Grand Junction next week, toward the end of next week, Friday and Saturday. I have been working on the parking lot lease with Stampede, and we had to make some revisions and so forth, and sent one draft to Chichi on that, so we'll be working through that to a final draft. We had to revise some of the language in that from what they had submitted to us. Working with DJ on removal of some old trailers on the Sequia Drive trailer park area, and with that, I'll shut up.
Thank you.
Did I do well?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. City Manager.
Hi, everybody. So a few things. One thing, as DJ was talking, I was thinking, we took to heart, or I took to heart, when we had that little bit of a work session on the finance about looking at the exterior of the building. So we're trying to get bids. We're kind of running into a couple problems with that. And one is we haven't been able to identify yet a company in the San Luis Valley that can take on a project of this size to re-stucco. And our local window dealers aren't interested in the project because, again, it's too large and they don't have the manpower to be able to do the installations and stuff. So it's turning out to be a little bit more of a challenge than what we expected. He's also been helping Anika and working towards trying to get good solid bids on what the air conditioning is going to cost to put into the kids connection. So it's kind of crazy, but trying to make sure that we can have local support and contractors, and yet some of these things are a little too big for them. We did hold the 2 open houses for the Valley Theater this last week. We had 6 people between the 2 show up. Don't know if there's full interest or not, but at least we got some people through. We're gonna take another look at how we're gonna get a big sign to put up on the outside of it and send people towards the website. And and probably set up another open house or two for folks to walk through it and take a look. Upper Rio Grande Economic Development has hired a new executive chairman or executive director. Her name's, she goes by Dre. It was Andrea, but Dre Oaks Harmio. She will be using one of our offices here, and she comes in 2 days a week. This next week, we're going to be doing a little bit of a half-day board retreat and just kind of make sure that she's marching in the direction that Monte Vista, Del Norte, and South Fork would like to see her do that for economic development activities. And she was part of the meeting with this lab as well. On Tuesday, we've got the president of the University of Colorado is going to be here. His name is Todd Solomon. So I'm kind of working on an agenda on what to do with him. He'll be spending part of the day in Alamosa, and then he's given us 3 hours. So we're going to take him through a potato warehouse since it's harvest time. He's trying to do a much greater outreach into rural communities and not be so front range, Boulder centric. So it's a good opportunity for us. And then Tuesday, late afternoon at 4 o'clock is the Southern Region meeting for CML. We haven't heard from everybody, so if you still want to attend, let me know and we'll get that scheduled. San Luis Valley Broadband is in a bit of a flux. This is something that I just haven't paid a lot of attention to. But now we've got competing people fighting and a misunderstanding on what the San Luis Valley is trying to do, what their objective is. Some is saying that we still need the middle mile that gets the broadband into the valley. Others are saying we need the final mile, which is getting it into homes. And so they've got quite a bit of data that is looking at how many homes have it, how many homes don't have it, and then how many homes don't want it. You've got a segment of the population that's like, I don't need it, So there's a little bit of a fight going on, and it's kind of ridiculous, and I'll be attending that meeting tomorrow. So questions? Staff has been working really hard on all sorts of things. Anita's working on budgets, so we'll be getting those wrapped up, and because you guys are going to have to be, we'll have to do our first public hearing and taking a look at the budgets here. We'll do a work session. Okay.
When did you say the CML meeting is? I can't.
It's Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday.
Yeah, 4 to 5:30 is the business meeting. And then 5 to 5:30 is social hour, and dinner is at 6:30, and it's at Sky High. And you're the host.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and I think Nita talked last time how we've got the Codys that have the Colorado Farm Brewery. We'll be there to talk about what their story is and how you make beer. And it'd be really great if we could we've got a gentleman who is an official licensed brewmaster who's looking at opening a location and brewing beer here in Monte Vista. So maybe.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council committee, city commission, council reports. Martha?
That's not well, I think I've stepped on some toes tonight, and for that, I apologize, because that's never my intention. But it is my intention to speak my mind. If toes get stepped on, I'm so sorry. To any of you. However, I strive and I fail often, but I succeed often too. I strive to be intelligent. I try to make intelligent decisions. I know that I come off a lot of times as silly, old-fashioned, country, southern. Yeah, I get that. It's because I like humor and I like to be funny. But I'd like to read to you one of my favorite quotes that guides me, and maybe you can take something from this. Maybe that's what it's for. And then I'll end my council report. I don't know who the author is. I've never been able to find it. I found this quote in a book once, and it said author unknown. I have spent years trying to know who this author is. I don't. I'm sorry. You must always be willing to truly consider evidence that contradicts your very basic beliefs and admit the possibility that you might be wrong. Intelligence isn't knowing everything. Intelligence is the ability to challenge everything you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Mr. Foster?
I have nothing to add.
Mr. Lorenz?
Be careful out on the roads. Harvest is in full swing. There's already been a few bad accidents out there, so just be aware.
I would like to second that. You know, also just be careful for the kids. You know, especially if you're out. You know, during the times when they're leaving school or before school and you're traveling through the areas. Kids are crazy and they take shortcuts. You know, so just be aware of these children out there. Oh, and thank the police officers because, you know, it's just something you gotta do.
You guys see something, say something. Be diligent. Find folks that have sticky fingers are still out there, so don't be ashamed to say something. Because Chief needs something else to do.
One more thing before you
ma'am.
slam your gavel. I think we need to give a shout out to the Monte Vista Potato Committee for a successful potato festival this last weekend. And then this Friday is the Little Arts Council Art Walk that's downtown. So lots of good activities going on.
Yeah, lots of fun. I need to learn how to post pictures because I took a bunch at the CPAC. That potato festival was a hoot. I had a good time. There was there were some other events going on, so I think it was a little lower in attendance, but it was a great time.
Great weather.
Perfect weather. All right. That being said, we will adjourn the meeting until
The 15th. Oh, today's the 15th. October 6th.
Yeah, we'll adjourn the meeting until October 6th, 6 p.m. here.